This episode of the professionalization of local government is split into two parts. In the first part, I talked to Professor Sam Koma of the University of Limpopo. And the second part, I'll be joined by the CEO of Kagiso Trust, and they'll be talking to us about the initiatives that the trust has embarked upon to improve professionalization at local government level.
Prof, thank you very much for talking to us. And I would like to start right away by asking the question regarding professionalization. I've been thinking about it, reflecting, why should we even be talking about professionalization? Because people who get appointed to top positions within government, whether it be national, provincial, and in this instance, we're talking about local government, we take for granted that these are suitably qualified people. Why does the issue arise in the first place?
Yes, thanks, Tim. Yes, it arises at this juncture because of serious governance lapses accompanied by accountability regressions, lack of consequence management across the three spheres of government, including state-owned companies or state-owned enterprises. So we're raising this issue of professionalization because the Constitution enjoins public sector institutions or organs of state in Chapter 10 of the Constitution, the first value and principle provided for in Chapter 10 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa says that a high standard of professional ethics must be promoted and maintained in the public service. And also the National Development Plan Vision 2030, which was adopted by the South African government in consultation and in partnership with social partners, business, labor, and community structures, also provides that we need to construct a capable and developmental state, which at the core is the issue of professionalization and also ethical standard behavior and conduct that needs to be observed and also promoted by those who are employed to serve the public, and we refer to this to those as public servants that are employed by the various organs of state and also including municipalities. We also have a whole range of other pieces of legislation that also speaks to the issue of promoting professional values, behavior, and conduct in the public sector, and that's the reason we have a number of codes of conduct. In the context of local government, we have two components of code of conduct. We have one code of conduct that governs councillors, the elected public representatives who serve in the 257 municipal councils. We also have a code of conduct that governs municipal staff. But there is a common thread in both code of conduct because municipal officials, including councillors, are expected to promote a culture of public service and also ensure that they put measures that are there to prevent the occurrence of corruption and also to ensure that, of course, they become responsive to the needs, the demands, and expectations of members of the public. So it's a topical issue. It's an issue that is quite significant, and it has to be.
I agree with you, and I find it interesting that all that you've said is enshrined in the Constitution and, as you said, in the National Development Plan and even the laws of the country. But when it does not happen, which seems to be the case, or let me ask first, to what extent do you think that this principle, this idea is being undermined in the public sector? What is the extent of the problem?
Yes, it's true, Tim. There is empirical evidence that is emerging. If you take the state of the public service, the pulse of the public service report, as they call it, is published by the Public Service Commission. It details huge challenges facing the public service around the issue of promoting ethical conduct, and it confines itself, that is the report, to ethical practices involved in the recruitment and appointment of public officials. The report singles out senior government officials who are part of the senior management service, including the political office bearers, the ministers, the MECs in the provincial level, as contributing to the influencing of appointment of officials who do not meet the bare minimum requirements of the job. So this occurrence takes place during the shortlisting process. So once the positions are advertised, they follow due process. But once they get into the shortlisting process, that's where the influence, the political influence come into play, and due influence is put on the HR practitioners in terms of having to influence appointments of individuals who do not meet the requirements. So that is one report. But you also have the latest local government audit outcomes report, which was tabled by the Auditor General 2 weeks ago in Parliament. It also details serious accountability regressions around the issue of, for example, public procurement, because the report flags that there is about 51.9 billion rand that is classified as material irregularities, which means that this is expenditure that borders on instances of fraud, corruption, or theft on the part of municipal officials that are bestowed with the responsibility to ensure that public funds are utilized in the most effective, efficient, and also a professional manner. So with these two reports already, we're having a sense that the issue of professionalization has been undermined, and also you still have a number of officials who are not facing any consequences, and thus creating a culture of impunity, lack of consequences, and accountability within municipalities.
Now, as you've indicated, the Constitution and the laws of the country require that we run a very capable state with professional people, suitably qualified and ethical type individuals. But we're not doing that. And you already have mentioned the repercussions of such practices. How do we reverse that? Who's responsible for that? Who should be professionalizing the state? Because the laws are there. Everybody knows when you put an organization together, you'll want to appoint the appropriate people to those the appropriate people to the different positions that you have in an organization. So we have these reports. Who must correct what is wrong?
Yes, you're quite right. Thanks for that, Tim. So the buck stops with elected public representatives. In the national sphere of government, we're referring to the president, the ministers, and also the accounting officers, who are the DGs and heads of departments. In the provincial level, the buck stops with the premier of the province, the MECs of the various portfolios assigned to them by the premier concerned, and the accounting officers who are the heads of departments. In local government, the buck stops with the executive mayor or the mayor, and also the other political office bearers who are the MMCs, as they call them, and also the accounting officers who are the municipal managers. Beyond this group of public representatives, we also have to bring in the oversight and accountability bodies. That is the municipal councils, the provincial legislatures, 9 in number, and also parliament. They have a crucial role to play in terms of holding these public officials, these elected public representatives or political office bearers accountable, answerable for any actions, inactions, and lack of actioning of any of the reports that gets tabled by the various Chapter 9 institutions, that is the AG, the public protector. You also have the courts increasingly making serious judgments that speaks to the issue of governance lapses. So we expect this cohort of officials to be the ones that lead by example, to be the ones that are able to action the issue of consequences, reprimanding officials, taking disciplinary sanctions or proceedings against any implicated officials in any of these reports.
Well, you are one of the commentators on this matter. You have written pieces and given presentations on the professionalization of the public sector. The laws require that it be the case. members of the public, the citizens, what is it that they can do about this situation, given that the cohort of individuals and groups of people that you have referred to are not doing what is required in terms of appointing the appropriately skilled people? I mean, the responsibility or the blame is always put at the door of the very people that you said are responsible for making sure that the right people are appointed. So what else can we do except to sit around and hope for the best and hope that they do the right thing, which they're not doing?
Yes. No, Tim, we cannot afford to lay back. We cannot afford not to be active. We need active citizenry. We need citizens to ever remain vigilant, including civil society. So all of us, we have a collective responsibility. Those who are in the media fraternity, let's continue to play this watchdog role of exposing shenanigans, elements of wrongdoing, allegations of corruption that require the attention of members of the society, including these legislative bodies. We also need citizens to actively get involved in any public platforms that are created for them to voice their concerns and also to be able to take up these kind of issues either by embarking on a protest or petitioning these elected public representatives to bring these issues to their attention and require the actioning of these issues on the part of the elected public representatives. So we cannot sit on our laurels. We need, and the State Capture Commission taught us a lesson to say we need to remain vigilant as civil society, as citizens, in terms of holding those who are elected and also appointed to carry on the mandate of government and also to fulfill our constitutional obligations to play that role in a more diligent and also in a more effective and efficient manner.
You mentioned or used the word regression earlier on when it comes to the practice of appointing professional people or appropriately skilled people to the various positions within the government, right? I'm not sure, if we were to work on fixing this problem, do you have a step-by-step idea or approach that you think can halt this regression or can help improve the situation within the public sector?
Yes, Tim. So the issue is that we seem not to have the right people holding the right positions. So this is where professionalism is undermined because you don't have the best among us selected carefully to assume responsibilities in the different spheres of government, including the state-owned companies. And that's the reason that we keep on saying we need to build an accountability ecosystem. So in this ecosystem, all of us have a role to play so that when there are accountability regressions, we don't pinpoint one stakeholder that, no, it's failure of municipal council, it's failure of executive mayor. We begin to ask questions. Where are the audit committees? Where are the internal audit units? Where is the speaker of the municipal council? Where is the MPEC, the Municipal Public Accounts Committee? Where are the members of the community in terms of raising the issues that are flagged in the various reports? So in that way, we'll be able to build a strong culture of accountability and also embedding the issue of consequence management across the different spheres of government and also the state-owned companies. So that's the role that we need to assume within the accountability ecosystem as part of asking the right questions and also demanding responses to these questions that we are asking in our respective spaces.
Professor Sam Koma, I appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks very much for sharing your views with us on this issue.
Mankodi Moitse, the CEO of Kagiso Trust, we appreciate your time and we're going to discuss the professionalization of local government. And this is a big concept and it's got several elements to it. You've worked in the public sector yourself, particularly in local government, so you are familiar with this. There is a connection between service delivery and professionalization. Can you help me make that connection from your experience and observation?
Thank you, Tim. You're absolutely correct. Actually, if you look at the Constitution and all other legislation that governs municipal work, it's actually around provision of basic services. If we can't do this, our whole existence, our whole reason for existing as municipalities does not hold water. So, service delivery, listening to communities in terms of their basic services, driving socio-economic development is the core mandate of municipalities. So if we can do this work of offering basic services properly, we are absolutely not committed to our mandate.
So I asked Professor Sam Koma this question, who's also part of this discussion, that why do we even have to raise the point of professionalization? One would take for granted that an organization that wants to be fit for purpose would appoint the right people for the right positions in order for them to deliver on the mandate that you've just mentioned. So it's still an issue in South Africa. Why is that an issue?
You know, you're raising a very important point. Actually, there are several issues around this topic of professionalization that is troubling. The first issue is that the whole conversation is actually spoken from the outside to the inside. You are correct. By the very nature, when you appoint people and the very type of work that municipalities are doing, whether it's accountants, engineers, nurses, social workers, by definition, they've gone through some training. So we shouldn't be talking about professionalization the way we are talking about it. But something has gone wrong, too. The culture has gone wrong, and we need to accept that something is fundamentally wrong. I mean, just look at the issue of accountability. Who makes us to account? It's someone else from outside who is legislated to come and check the work that we do, whether it's treasury, provincial or national, whether we talk about the AG. So somehow the whole process of accountability has put us and our municipalities in a way that we don't hold ourselves accountable first. So definitely it shouldn't be. We should start from the inside to the outside and not the outside to the inside. So the culture has really gone wrong, whether it's impunity, I'm quite sure. I mean, team municipalities hire hundreds and thousands of employees. I beg to differ with the fact that all of the employees in municipalities are complacent. But I guess when the culture allows people not to exert themselves, apply themselves, even those that are good end up just relaxing. So culture has gone wrong and it has to be arrested. I mean, I can just give you an example. I've never had a municipality talk about their audits in public, coming to say, I have this fruitless expenditure. This is what went wrong, and this is what I'm committing to do the next time. All we hear is the AG reporting on these matters. So that machinery of accountability has also been disorganized, and we need to find a way of restoring this.
Now, let's talk about professionalization and the elements that make up the concept of professionalization. I would like to believe one of those will be the skills and competency on the part of the people who are appointed, their ability to communicate with their stakeholders, the community, and their responsiveness to inquiries and whatever issues that the members of the community may raise with them. But talk me through this a little bit more. Tell me about the recruitment of the right people, the ability to communicate, as well as the responsiveness.
Firstly, look, I don't think we should make it as a general point to say the right people are not appointed. I think there is an element where the right people are not appointed, and that needs really to be corrected. Because if you don't appoint the right people, it means you're going to spend years instead of doing service delivery, but making sure that you capacitate the person. But there is a second element of professionalization. How do you make sure that in a world of changing needs, that you make sure that as leadership, we drive the culture of skills adaptation and skills adoption. So it's very, very much important that as officials, whether it's political office bearers or municipal officials, that we set ourselves and recommit to the culture of continuing to learn. But Tim, you've raised an important thing around listening to communities. There is this unfortunate disjuncture between municipalities and communities. And without this, the element of collaborating. What do I mean by that? We must collaborate in planning. We must collaborate when we set performance targets. We must collaborate when we do budgets. We must collaborate in delivery. And it's quite important because sometimes the expectation might be way higher than what the municipality can address through their fiscals. We must also collaborate in accountability. So I believe that there needs to be I'm not discounting the fact that legislation is important. We must bring other rules and regulations and procedures. But the things that needs to be done here, honestly, they all require people saying, it is us in this ship. How are we going to commit ourselves to a culture as leadership, drive it to from the top to make sure that we collaborate with our communities, listen to them and work with them and manage the expectations as well.
Well, let's talk about the Kagiso Trust initiatives to try and improve the situation here. If you can tell me a bit more about the municipal leadership and management empowerment dialogue approach. That is one of your initiatives. Tell me more.
You know, Tim, thanks for the opportunity. We found that unless we have a platform to have real conversation, confronting reality, if we are not going to make progress. Somebody needs to confront the reality that this audit outcome says it's a disclaimer. And it's a disclaimer because of the following factors. Let's hold each other accountable. Who contributed to what? I mean, right now, you know, there's an element where some municipalities will have budgets and some of them will be returned back to the fiscal. So, who are supposed to plan in advance? Who are supposed to understand the needs and make sure that they plan in advance? So, the whole matter around holding ourselves accountable to how do we plan, how do we budget, how do we communicate what we are going to do? So, the program for Kagiso Trust that has been successful in education, it's really having hard conversations amongst ourselves. Most of the cases, if you come from outside, you will never make me account as much as I can if I'm able to put facts on the table to say, I know why this has gone wrong. So we have conversations where we appreciate the whole value chain from a leader, from a political office bearer, senior management. Let everybody, if others are saying there's interference, let's talk about it. Why is there interference? Is it because you don't trust that I'm able to deliver what has been committed on my scorecard? According to the law, as a municipal manager, I'm an accounting officer. So those conversations we have with them. And sometimes, Tim, you know, municipalities have been characterized by the criticisms of non-delivery. It makes the environment to be hostile, even amongst one another. We blame one another. So these conversations, which we call municipal empowerment dialogues, allows officials, municipal leadership to confront each other because we avoid each other when things don't go right. So we confront each other. We have commitments which we agree on, but most important, we bring the community, active citizenry to hold us accountable. Let them know what we have agreed together with my political lead. So that's what we are encouraging, that we believe that this is an important conversation that we are not having. We rush from one cycle to another. We rush from budgeting, spending, disclaimer audits. Continue again. Budgeting spend. I don't know if you remember, Tim, one of the best weeks in my year is the second week in January, where the Minister of Education and the MECs stand in front of the public and say, this is how we have performed and why. Such a public accountability, I believe, should be introduced in all the municipalities. We can't go to the public only when we do budget to consult. Let's come back and say, this is how we spend it, and this is why we performed in a certain way, so that we can keep on improving.
Well, the collaboration that you are mentioning with civic society is most welcome, but civic society is not as organized, I suppose, as government would be. So how should civic society go about mobilizing in order to collaborate meaningfully with the local government, the local municipality?
You're raising an important point, because our experience on the ground is that there are some pockets of communities and civil society organizations that are a bit organized. But this doesn't work if others are left outside. So it's important that all parties, all interested parties become part of the collaborating machinery. We found that with those that are outside, it's important to do exercises like sense making, because somehow, remember when you are in a municipal space, sometimes you don't even know whether what you're complaining about is it a jurisdiction of province or a jurisdiction of national. So you really need to have communities in particular who have not been part of this machinery to come in and do what we call sense making. How do I make sense of this space? What is the law saying about this person who is the other side, who I must not participate in holding them accountable? So we found that where we are, these sessions are critical to really, because sometimes people signed off. They are so fed up, they are so angry, they are not even able to say, let me engage in a meaningful way. So sense-making exercise help us to bring the community back to the drawing table. But the second one is about bridging leadership. It doesn't help when the municipality, when the community organize themselves to collaborate. They've made sense of what they now understand to be the issue. And they find the other side that the posture of the municipality is the top down. There has to be the us, the the we, and there has to be the we, because the us and them is not working. So it's very tricky, and it's in the nature of the work of the municipality. You have to allow the community to come and be part of what you do. So we found that when there's this bridging, the openness from political leadership in particular, to say we want to hear, we want to explain. I mean, issues like local economic development, that's one of the biggest pain points in the country. Did you know that is the mandate of municipalities? Now, to have meaningful local economic development, you have to work with the communities so that we can understand what's feasible in our small town. And therefore, this bridging program, we find that it really makes a way for people to come in together and engage in a structured manner.
Thank you very much, Moitse, Mankodi Moitse, for having been my guest and explaining how you approach this. Can you just make a quick comment on the municipal empowerment retreats? Is this where some of the stuff that you've spoken about takes place?
Yeah, so yes, that's where we have this dialogue. And the important thing about the municipal empowerment retreats, we come in there and say there's no rank. I don't come in there and hold my position as the mayor, or my position as the chair of the committee, or my position as the MM. And it's not a place about you and you, it's a place about us. So it's a and it's structured in such a way that I don't know how many people, Tim, after they've received a qualified audit, they go back and unpack it to really say what has gone wrong. So it allows us to face the kind of things that you actually want to forget, because they just remind you that you are a failure. But we say, unless we confront that, And also, we will realize that, okay, maybe this is a place where Mankodi is not performing because that's where she's got a skills gap. And then she can articulate that, and we can work towards capacitating her in a meaningful way and not find that we have generic courses, we attend courses because they have been set out. This empowerment workshops allows the collective to agree on specific things that need to take place.
Mankodi Moitse, the CEO of Kagiso Trust, thank you very much for talking to us.